Welcome to Weekly Pulse. I'm your host, Lorenzo Reyes. This week, we're taking a closer look at the NBA. Players like James Harden are having incredible seasons, but does it matter if no one's watching? NBA reporter Mark Medina dives into the league's ratings problem. It's been quite a year for LSU quarterback Joe Burrow. We'll reflect on Burrow's fantastic season. It's pretty easy to see why he took home the Heisman. But Burrow isn't the only one to keep an eye on in the bowl games. Paul Meyerberg has a list of his top 4 players you need to watch this bowl season. Then, we sit down with former hockey player George Parros to talk about player safety and why you see less fisticuffs on the ice today than you would have seen a few decades ago. And of course, we have the latest across the NFL for you too. Let's roll.
I spoke with Rockets general manager Daryl Morey and Rockets coach Mike D'Antoni about James Harden. Both of them told me they feel like this is James Harden's best season yet. And if you look at the numbers, they're telling the same story. He's gotten off to the best start since Wilt Chamberlain started the 1962-63 season, and he's already become the first player in NBA history to average at least 35 points and 7 assists per game.
This is just not overnight. It's not just happening just because it happens. Put the work in every single day. And for people who overlook that or want to talk about the negative things or the things that they feel like they can talk about to belittle what I'm doing, continue to do it, because guess what? I won't stop working.
When you talk to people around the Rockets, Daryl Morey, Mike D'Antoni, James Harden's teammates, they feel like he is just scratching the surface. Even in this loaded Western Conference, the Rockets have a good chance to win an NBA title, and the primary reason, James Harden.
Ratings are down, cord cutting's continuing to be a thing, and the league is on notice. But my sense is the NBA and its broadcast partners are keeping the big picture in mind, and here's what the big picture is saying. To start off the beginning of the 2019-20 season, plenty of the national marquee games have coincided with star players sitting out with injuries. That's not just been with the Clippers' Kawhi Leonard with the whole load management program. It's also included his teammate Paul George. It's included Golden State's Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, New Orleans' Zion Williamson. And the other reality is the majority of the nationally marquee games so far have been backloaded. There's going to be a lot more Lakers, Clippers, and Rockets game, as well as in the Christmas Day game. So I think just like how they're looking at the early returns for how, teams are playing well or poorly, the broadcast partners are very well aware that things can change because it is a long season.
No player felt the brunt of the displeasure from the black hole like Derek Carr after the Raiders had a meltdown of a 20-16 defeat against the Jacksonville Jaguars in their final home game before the franchise will move next year to Las Vegas. But the Raiders really gave their fans the type of performance that they've seen here for many years now. Another big L. No wonder Raiders coach John Gruden found himself apologizing for the effort after the game.
We have 8 squads who have already clinched. That leaves 4 more. But before we get to all that, let's dive into this week's risers and fallers. And we have to start in Santa Clara, where the 49ers went from the number 1 seed in the NFC all the way down to the 5th. And this happens 1 week after the exact opposite happened when they went from 5 to 1. It was one of the wilder finishes you'll ever see, and in the end, it was just a matter of inches of crossing the plane and an incredible play by Julio Jones. But the Niners should be fine. As long as they win out in their final 2 games of the season and beat the Rams and the Seahawks, they'll enter the playoffs, again, atop the NFC. Now let's turn to a riser, and it's the NFC East, at least the top half. Both the Eagles and the Cowboys won their games on Sunday, improving their records to 7-7. That sets up what's basically an NFC East championship game, Week 16 in Philly. So finally, after all these weeks of, let's call it mediocrity, it looks like we'll finally know which team will almost certainly hold that number 4 seed in the conference. To a faller, and it's the Raiders. Their last ever game in Oakland devolved into an ugly scene when some fans refused to leave the stadium after the game, a few others rushed the field, some threw objects, and pretty much everyone booed Derek Carr into the tunnel. Oh, and the team also blew a 4th quarter lead and lost to the Jaguars too. The Bills, the playoff-bound Bills, the double-digit victories for the first time since 1999 Bills. Great job by Sean McDermott in building a team and a culture that looks like it's going to be a really tough out in January in the AFC. Which brings us all to, for one more time this year, the Brownies. I guess dysfunction really never left Cleveland. It just has a bunch of new and way more expensive faces.
Hi, this is Bob Nightingale from USA Today Sports, and this is what I'm hearing. Well, what the baseball industry debates whether the Diamondbacks made a good move or bad move by signing Madison Bumgarner to a 5-year, $85 million contract. What their next plan is to trade Robbie Ray. This leaves them still having a horse in that rotation in Bumgarner and getting a whole lot of prospects back for Ray, who just has 1 year left. A lot of teams want this strikeout pitcher. The Diamondbacks have shown no inclination to signing him to extension, so they'll move him. They'll have a lot of teams in on him. And just like last July, when they didn't trade him, it's going to be a high asking price. Now, of course, we'll see what kind of pitcher Bumgarner is. Is it the guy who had a career-high 3.90 ERA last year, or will he revert back to where he was a few years ago when he was one of the top pitchers in all of baseball? Certainly, there's been no better postseason pitcher of this generation, a guy who went 4-0 with a 0.25 ERA. The Diamondbacks would love to see that occur again and make the playoffs. Obviously, the Dodgers are still the team to beat in the National League West, where they'll be going for their 8th consecutive division title, but the wild card race is wide open.
When the calendar turned to the 21st century, Tiger Woods continued his dominance in the game of golf. But when 2010 rolled around, a cluster of players, all talented, joined Tiger Woods as the dominant forces in the game in the next decade. But the decade's best player was Rory McIlroy. The boy wonder from Northern Ireland became the man in the decade from 2010 to 2019. He won 18 PGA Tour titles, which tied Dustin Johnson for the most during the decade. He also won 5 European Tour titles. 4 of his victories were major championships, and McIlroy joined Tiger Woods as the only players in history to win multiple majors by at least 8 shots. He also joined Tiger Woods as the only players in history to win the FedEx Cup twice. In 2019, he won the Players' Championship, the Canadian Open, the World Golf Championships, HSBC Champions, and the Tour Championship to win the FedEx Cup playoff. While there were a lot of great players that could have been the best player of the decade, Rory McIlroy clearly was the best player.
LSU quarterback Joe Burrow is your 2019 Heisman Trophy winner in a runaway. He's really been in control of this thing since early November when he beat Tua Tagovailoa and Alabama on the road, and ever since that point it's just been a foregone conclusion. He is a bit of an underdog, relatively speaking. Let's get one thing straight. Coming out of high school, he did get a scholarship to Ohio State, the Ohio State. That says something. He didn't get the starting job there. He was a backup all 3 seasons, leapt at the opportunity to go to LSU and become a starter. But even at LSU, he wasn't this immediate kind of explosive, productive passer. As a junior last year, he was fine, good, better than average, certainly not terrible. LSU's offense in general was very predictably awful and kind of predictably predictable in a sense because they were just the same old LSU. This past offseason, they revamped everything, put the control of the offense in Burrow's hands. The results speak for themselves. 48 touchdowns, like 78% completion percentage, almost 5,000 passing yards in the regular season. And yeah, along the way, he unseated a lot of people who are in the mix for the Heisman, including Tagovailoa. At this point for Burrow, he leads the #1 team in the country into the college football playoff. And more than that, as a prospect, he's gone from someone nobody talked about as an NFL starter, maybe as a game manager, a late round pick this time last year, to being a quarterback who is in the mix, not just to be the #1 quarterback taken, but the #1 player drafted overall. Bowl season is here, and also coming soon, NFL draft. Here are 4 players, 2 on offense, 2 on defense, who can really boost their draft stock heading into next spring. Start with quarterback Justin Herbert of Oregon. He made that really great decision this time last year to come back for his senior year, and it's paid off. Doing that ensures him of being a top 15 pick, maybe a top 10 pick, maybe even based on need, a top 5 pick. One last piece of tape would help. Wisconsin's defense all season has been outstanding. If he does a number on the Badgers, can't hurt. Oklahoma State running back Chuba Hubbard goes into the Texas Bowl against Texas A&M, looking to secure a spot in the first round of the NFL draft if he comes out after his redshirt sophomore season. He's got the production and the numbers. Nation's leading rusher. Every team on Oklahoma State's schedule schemed for a way to stop him. No one really could. Auburn takes on Minnesota in the Outback Bowl. It's the final game of the college career for defensive tackle Derek Brown, who, like Justin Herbert, could have come out last year, maybe gone in the first round, certainly no later than the second round, but by coming back as a senior and dominating the SEC, really proved himself to be the top interior defensive lineman in this draft class. Minnesota's a good test for Auburn and its defense. Look for Brown to dominate this game, because Minnesota hasn't really faced a defensive lineman like Brown all season. Ohio State takes on Clemson in the Fiesta Bowl. All eyes on Ohio State's defense go toward Chase Young. And yeah, Chase Young, he's pretty good. The second star in this defense is Jeffrey Okudah at cornerback. He has benefited to a degree from the fact that Young and those guys up front are kind of unblockable, but he has developed into Ohio State's latest stopper on the outside. Okudah's already a first-round pick, no doubt, no question. Top 15, maybe even top 10. With a good game against Clemson, he can move into the top 5, seriously, because he's going to get matched up with T. Higgins and Justin Ross, fellow guys who could play the way into the first round. If he dominates them, obviously NFL teams are going to like that.
The parity and the chaos continues this college basketball season. After a weekend that saw Seton Hall lose to Rutgers, North Carolina lose to Wofford, and Ohio State lose to Minnesota, well, the Coaches Poll rankings once again have been shaken up. And lo and behold, we've got a new number 1 once again. Gonzaga, coming off a big win over Arizona, is close behind at number 2. And Kansas unseated Louisville, which was number 1 for what, a few days before getting upset by Texas Tech? Cards checking at number 5 this week. And it's been a really tough week when you think about former number 1 candidate Michigan, having losses at Illinois and then to Oregon, falling all the way back to number 15. Listen, the Big Ten is really stacked this year, top to bottom. Virtually every team in this league is 1-1 and it's 14 teams. After losing to Duke in the opening game of the season, Kansas has ascended to the top spot as Coach Bill Self has a team that's just balanced when you think about it, capable of getting to the Final Four once again behind Devin Dotson and Udoka Azubuike. You think their schedule might be bad, a little bit easy? Well, take a closer look because that resume has wins over Colorado, BYU, and Dayton. These are underrated wins that will likely be signature victories come turning time.
I'm waiting for somebody to come in and be like, oh, duh. Hello, everybody. My name is Miles Chandler Watson. I'm a 2-time world champion, Olympic bronze medalist, training for Tokyo.
Yeah, I'm taking notes right away.
Good luck.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too. See what you got.
Kind of tall.
All more legs, baby.
So I'm jumping right into these questions?
Fire right in. We've been looking into his eyes the whole time.
I am really nervous.
If you guess this, you can have my shoes.
Is there a ball in your sport?
No ball.
Is it seasonal?
Yes. I mean, everyone's going off season.
Okay.
That won't count as a question.
Okay, great, thanks.
How long or how many rounds does it take to compete in this sport?
3 3-minute rounds.
Have to be in the sand?
No.
Not volleyball.
No.
Is water involved?
Water is not involved.
Not involved.
Yeah, we can put a big X next to the first question.
Okay, that eliminated a few things. Artistic swimming, you're not an artistic swimmer. That was my first thought when I came in.
Artistic, is that actually a thing?
Don't try to throw me off right now.
Is it a race?
No, just to a certain amount of points, but no race.
And the points are by judges.
Yes, action happens, and then we have a referee, and he gives someone a point.
Do you wear gloves to play this sport?
I wear a glove.
Do you use like items, like instruments?
Yes, I have something in my hand.
Why is there something in your hand?
Because I'm trying not to get killed.
There's something in your hand, you're trying not to get killed? Why is this such a dangerous sport?
Are you with a team out in the field or?
I would say no to that question.
No, so it's
Yes.
just you out there.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes, it's individual. We also have a team, but it's never ever at the same time.
Is it a fight, in a way?
Yes.
Okay, I think I got it.
Oh, you sure?
Are you a wrestler?
Nope. This is the only thing I'm gonna give you. I have something covering my face.
Okay, you're a fencer.
Hey, oh!
That's it.
You got it.
Respect.
To protect this.
Is it like fencing?
Oh, shit!
Really?
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh
Yes.
my God!
Is it fencing?
How the hell did you guess that?
Am I right? Basketball or baseball players?
Neither.
To me. Neither?
Sport's too easy for me. Can I say it?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm a fencer.
Wow, okay. Did not guess that. Would not have gotten that.
Go with your first instinct.
Fencing.
You got it.
Yes.
Oh.
See, you come prepared and it works out.
I seriously was coming in thinking you were a volleyball player.
He might have been a hooper with the tats. I thought he was a hooper at first. Does he play basketball?
Good jump from the foul line.
Rugby, wrestling, climbing, BMX, rowing, table tennis, mountain biking, handball. Fencing was, I don't want to call it a total guess. I mean, you look like a fencer.
Do I? No,
Yeah.
let's be honest.
I do.
You I look like a fencer.
I do.
You can never see their faces, so I can't be like, because you look like this.
That's true,
'Cause,
yeah.
you know, I don't know what their faces look like.
You think most of them are small?
Pretty much look like him, but not as tall.
But it just tells me it's being good in general for life.
But isn't also half. That's true. That's true. As a short person, I can relate.
Miles the fencer. I won't forget. I'm gonna be looking for you now
Bro,
in the
that's me,
Olympics.
bro. Better, man.
Get that gold, man.
You are, of course, the head of the Department of Player Safety. I'd love to know, what is it that you guys do? I know you have a representative watching every single game. There's no need for teams to say, hey, can you guys review the video?
Yeah, people hear a lot about the war room in Toronto, the operations room. They do all the goal reviews and officiating reviews. We have the same thing going on here right in Midtown Manhattan. We've got a whole team dedicated to just player safety, supplementary discipline, on-ice infractions. We take a look at every single play of every single game. You say you send in the video, they used to send in the videotape, right? And that tells you how old it was because it was back in the videotape era. We don't do that anymore. We've got a whole team dedicated to this stuff, so we're monitoring every game.
Now, of course, you're in charge of player safety, but is part and parcel with that to make the game as attractive as possible for the fans?
Yeah, I think the two go hand in hand. It really dawned on me when I took over the department. The decisions that we make, that I make, they have a direct impact on the game, and we want those to be for the better. We're trying to protect the sport in general. We're trying to protect the players on the ice. We're trying to protect the integrity of the game, and we like to think that when we make a decision, it affects the way the players play the game. And like I said, we like physical hockey. We like good, clean hitting. We just don't like when it's over the line, and that's what we're there for.
You've devoted so much time to eliminating dirty hits, to eliminating slashing. Talk about some of the key accomplishments so far in your tenure.
Slashing was actually an interesting one. It was brought about by the keepers of the game, our general managers, and everyone else in it. Try to free up some of our skilled players and allow them to create more offense. We've had scoring up. As everyone could say, the offense has spiked since then, and the game's in a good spot, I think.
What are your recollections of Ron Hextall? Like, how would you legislate some of the tactics, we'll say, that he used back in the day?
Man, that's an interesting one. I'm kind of glad I don't have to deal with that. Ron was an exceptionally talented goaltender, as we all know, but obviously very fiery and emotional, and that's why he was so good. I think of Billy Smith as well, and guys like that. There's some crazy things that happen in the history of our sport. Obviously, we look through a different lens these days, and there's less of those types of antics that go on, whether it's wild stick swings or extreme acts of aggression. We're trying to cut those out of the game.
Let's talk about fighting. There was a notion back in the day that fans showed up to watch fighting. But now if you look at the NHL arenas, there's less fighting. You guys to play to 95% capacity during the regular season, over 100% capacity in the postseason. Was that a myth that fans really craved fighting?
I don't think it was a myth at all. I think a lot of people loved that aspect of the game. Certainly got them out of their seats from time to time. And it was an exciting part of the sport, but at the same time, I think we've kind of progressed from there. I think, as you said, there's been really no rules to take fighting out of the game. It's kind of happened naturally. There's a lot more of an appetite for the high-end skill in our game and focus on that. I think the teams are just built differently these days, quite honestly. Roster spots are more and more valuable. We have a salary cap instituted in the sport now, which really makes those players on the ice more valuable. You can't have a guy who's perhaps one-dimensional. I think teams are just built different. They're living in this cap world and trying to figure it out, and obviously general managers find the need for skilled guys more valuable than those types of players, so I think it's kind of been a natural progression.
During your career, you were a fighter. Would you survive in today's game? Would you have to rework your style of play, rework your repertoire?
I definitely came up at the right time, I think, in the right era. My skill set was still deems as highly valuable, but I like to think that I can always play the game pretty well too. I mean, any guy that has put on an NHL sweater and stepped foot on NHL ice has deserved to be there. They can play the game. There's no doubt about it. But today's game, it is definitely more than a few steps faster. I would have to think that I'd set my training to be somewhat different to keep up with the pace of play, because it's actually absolutely incredible the way these guys are playing the game now and the speed at which they're playing it.
Without a doubt, and with less clutching and grabbing and less slashing, you see the beauty of the game, and you see Connor McDavid doing his thing, and so many great players out there. When you watch the game now, what are your takeaways?
I think first and foremost, today's game, you see the youth movement. We've got so many guys who are coming up and making an impact early in their careers, young players who are free to make the plays that we'd like them to play, and these guys have trained more and more at younger ages, making these skilled plays, training the skill side of their games. You mentioned Connor McDavid. He can make plays at top speed more than or better than anybody else I've seen, and other guys are following suit, obviously, but the way in which they're playing the game, the way they're not afraid to make plays and are free to make them with rules being tightened up on the obstruction stuff like you mentioned, hooking, holding, slashing. It's all coming together pretty well right now, and we're pretty happy with the way the game's being played.
Players in the NHL are so great about giving back to their communities and being active in important causes. Talk about your relationship and your involvement with childhood leukemia, the fight against that, and all the other different great things that you've done in your career.
As an athlete, you have a great platform and a great opportunity to raise awareness for funds, raise awareness for different causes and funds for different causes. When I was playing, I found a great joy in growing my hair out every year, and probably ticked off a few coaches along the way, but I wouldn't cut it all year long, and would ask fans to grow their hair with me and cut it off and donate it to Childhood Leukemia Foundation, clfforkids.org. And had a lot of fun with that. It was a great way to connect to the fan base and endear all of them to a great cause. And so still have the mustache, still do Movember every year, and obviously it's a great way to, again, raise awareness for good causes.
Your legacy, your hockey legacy, like we mentioned, all these great things that you've accomplished and you continue to accomplish. But let's say 20 years from now, what do you want to be remembered for when people look at the history of hockey?
I think I've played a very, very, very small part in it, but at the time being right now, I do believe that what we do at the Department of Player Safety is crucial to the game, crucial to keeping the game safe, crucial to keeping the players safe and having long careers. And like I said, we make decisions every night. We monitor the game every night to the nth degree to try and serve this game and keep it not only safe, but keep the integrity of the sport. We like our hockey. We like our hockey played physically, but like I said, keep everyone in line, and obviously that's not lost on us. So I think if looking back from this point on, if they were to say that I had a small part in keeping this game played the right way and clean to some degree, then that would be great.
This weekend, it's all about the NFL. We've reached that sweet spot in the season when you get games on both Saturday and Sunday. And on Saturday, the Rams are trying to keep their playoff hopes alive. Meanwhile, the Niners are trying to climb back into that number 1 seed. Deshaun Watson and the Texans will try to prevent Jameis Winston and the Bucs from scoring. And in the AFC East, it's Bills and Patriots. There's a lot on the line for this divisional game. Sunday is also chock full of great matchups. The Cowboys take on the Eagles in a battle for the NFC East. And on Monday, I'll be watching Aaron Rodgers and the Packers take on the Vikings. Stick with Weekly Pulse, your heartbeat to what's trending in sports. Hey sports fans, if you want to see more videos like this, check out some of our other ones right here. And if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button and stick around for more from USA Today Sports.